Going to the conferences, I just learned a tremendous amount, the cutting edge of research, and the people that I've met have also just been fantastic. You may be going and looking for one thing out of one technology, and you bump into somebody else who's looking for something totally different in a different technology, and you start talking to each other, and suddenly you realize that there's maybe a third thing that neither of you had thought about that can solve both of your problems.
Going to my first couple conferences, it was just that realization is, yeah, this is right. This is for me. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
I used the conferences as much as anything to go out and make sure I really understood what was going on.
Well, I was working in an area called link adaptation, which is a very small area at that time, and somebody else working in that was Leo Shanzo, this rock star in this particular area, and I got to talk to him, and that was fantastic for a wee lad from Scotland, you know.
The conversations in the hallways and the discussions that you're having with the presenters are priceless. You're seeing connections, you're seeing collaborations, you're seeing new ideas develop, and you're doing it sort of real time.
The reason I'm in the IEEE is because as soon as I left school, one of the first things I did was go to an IEEE conference in which I met all the people who wrote all the papers I'd read, wrote the textbooks I read, started presenting papers to them, and they actually thought I was worth working with.
It's kind of like a gauge of how important is your work. I remember one conference I went that not only the room was packed, people were in the hallway looking in.
And that was a wonderful affirmation that I actually had learned something and I could contribute.
This is something that I don't think you get anywhere else.
As a scientist, exchange of ideas are really the primary things.
The field advances so much faster when people know what's going on and can critique and comment and learn.
And the only way you can do that is by getting different people in the same room talking to each other.
I was listening for the first time to people from outside of AT&T. We were kind of a monopoly back in those days. We thought we had all the knowledge we needed, but you really need to get some outside views and say, hey, it's working for those guys. Let's try this out.
This is the part of the IEEE where people can learn the technology and advance the technology and spread the technology out for the benefit of everybody in the world.
That's really important.
If I want to be a good engineer, I need to be aware of what's happening, not just in my particular field, but in other fields, in the broader community of engineers.
I gave a talk on dissecting the performance of a commercial camera. And the person that designed that camera came up to me afterwards and said, those are a lot of good ideas there, but what would be really interesting from our point of view is if you just take the technology as far as it can possibly go, not worrying about whether it's commercially feasible or not, and then we can see how much of that we want to pick up and whether there's any value going there.
When I go to IEEE meetings, I always find that you interact with some really smart people and you walk away and you say, wow, that was a good experience, I learned something, and you're walking among some really bright, intelligent people, and that's an opportunity you don't get every day.
People use conferences in different ways. For me at the beginning it was more because there was some field that I was interested in. I really didn't know a lot about, and I thought what better way than to go find out what the current state of technology was. So that's why I got involved in the robotics conference. I got involved in Homeland Security that way, and image processing. So these are all fields that were not out of my traditional training or weren't part of my job description when I worked in industry, but they were all things that I was interested in. And so that's how I went, and I got to learn, here's what the famous people are doing in this area, here's what's new and great.
And in the end, I made a new camera that had a factor of 2 better performance than anything that had ever been made before. And in addition, he improved the performance of their camera significantly based on the work that we had done there.
Face-to-face interaction with colleagues, face-to-face interaction with students, face-to-face interaction with mentors. If we learn from others to look at the problems from a different perspective and different ways, that would actually help us to understand the science that we're doing. So it is basically to learn to look at problems from different point of view, perspective.
You almost always find that there's something, quote, unexpected. You meet a person, or you attend a presentation, or you engage in a workshop where it brings together typically something outside of your everyday field of view. And that's what really creates that energy.
If you just go to university, subscribe to, download your papers to the university library, you never meet anybody.
Any engineer who is worth their salt wants to be a better engineer tomorrow than they are today. Whenever I come back from a conference, I usually have some new thing that I want to look into, some new technology that I think might be useful, or just some new problem solution.
You see somebody present something that is related to what you're doing, and you go talk with them, and they had no idea about what the stuff that you're doing, and you had really no idea about the stuff that they're doing, and somehow you go away with a new idea for a joint project. And that doesn't happen to me when I'm sitting at my desk.